Computer's a little slow. Hi, this is Jane from Political.
Employee pool. And so we need to make sure that we take care of the society that we made from our past. And that's why we're doing this stuff. That's why we even have these social programs. Everybody in the world has socialized medicine with us. That says a lot. You know, are we that important? Are we that great? Are we that different, unique to everybody else in the world?
No, we're just in a greedy country.
No, but that's the problem. Everybody else in the world, you know, these people think that they like us. People hate us. The way the rest of the world hates us.
You say there's other countries in the world that's got socialized medicine?
Yes.
Oh, well, why don't these people coming out of South America go to them countries?
Canada, Europe.
Because we make more money than they do. That's simple. Otherwise, people who travel and move all over the world for socialized medicine because they get it cheaper, free. You know, people from America are always changing citizenship to go to a country like Canada. Healthcare, and also chronic or terminal illnesses. They go to these countries just for the doctors, just so they.
Well, that's good, Don, but these other people let them go to Canada, where they would be wanted.
They're going to Canada.
These Hondurans and these Nicaraguans and these Venezuelans,
they're going there.
Good. Leave America alone.
This is just a stopping off point. Wherever they can make the money, they make the money. I go up to
They should not be. They should. And see, that's another thing. They're not supposed to be working.
Who's they? You can get government benefits while you're working.
Because the white man wants them to.
Oh, we ain't got nothing to talk about no damn white man.
Let's not fight.
Man, these businesses would be out of business.
Always the white man. Good God Almighty.
You know better than anyone that if it wasn't for Mexican construction employment, we wouldn't have any of this construction move going on.
Mexicans, non-illegals don't work in commercial construction.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Commercial construction is union jobs. They can't get on those jobs.
Also, if all these countries have socialized healthcare except for the United States, then why are people coming here? You say they're coming here because they wanted the opportunities to make money. Well, why do they need to make money? I mean, if they have socialized healthcare, that means they must be paying too much out of the money that they make or the opportunity to make that money, and now it's taken away to pay for that healthcare, and evidently that healthcare isn't good enough for them that they would come here and do without the healthcare to have more money. But they don't have that opportunity in those states or those countries.
They're not always on the healthcare rolls because they want to stay incognito.
Why come Americans don't go there, Don?
What's happening is they come here without getting insurance. I mean, there are some people, there are a billion or so illegals who are on insurance illegally. But most of them aren't even on insurance. They don't have insurance. Just like Bianchi said earlier, you know, you get a chance to have instant health care. You go to the emergency room, they have to care for you. But you know, laissez-faire economics means that everybody has to get paid, and that means our doctors, you know, that's why malpractice suits were so through the roof. Doctors were paying $2 million a year just in malpractice. That's why they had to change it about 15 years ago. But you know, these things are simply money driven. However, the socialist countries like Suzette confirmed are paying.
Let me ask you a question, Donnie.
They're paying 60%.
Let me ask you a question, Donnie.
60% of their income
Donnie, let me ask you a question.
All right, let everybody talk, you guys.
Let me ask you a question, Donnie. You think that with the government, federal government paying subsidies, don't you think that's a reflection in increases in medical costs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but the thing is that healthcare in general is going up, and we're the only country that is experimenting with different methods of healthcare. Everybody,
it goes up because the federal government is subsidizing it. That's why it goes up. It's the same thing. Well, wait a minute. It's the same complaint people have about college tuition.
Yes.
When you pay these students, when the federal government starts inserting money in it, the damn costs go up.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. When doctors and nurses and hospitals being built are costing more, their salaries are more, we have to take money from somewhere. And since Republicans don't like taxes, and I don't like to make this politicized, but it is, because this whole thing is racist. The whole shutdown is about ACA, which is an Obama thing, and Trump in his first term said anything Obama, he's going to get rid of. This is the last thing, and the Democrats were standing up.
Because it doesn't work. It didn't work from the beginning, and Obama knew that.
You're right, and Obama lied. Obama lied, Donnie. He lied.
All right, don't be dissing with my Obama.
We're talking about Obama. Obama lied. He said you will be able to keep your doctors and all that other bull crap. Right. He lied.
He counted on it.
He didn't necessarily. He didn't necessarily lie, because in Minnesota there's only 2 major health systems, and
who run them, Dave?
most of us could keep ours.
Who runs those health systems, Dave? He's right.
Private businesses, conglomerates. The guy who got shot from United Healthcare.
But that's not the federal government thing. They're still private.
Look, this is my position. I'm going to come clean. I'm coming out of the closet. I don't care what the states do. My concern is about the federal government, because then they can tax my ass. I don't live in Minnesota. I don't live in Illinois for obvious reasons.
Yeah, no. Gary's right about all of that. He did lie.
You live in Louisiana, and some people think that state is subpar.
Well, I lobbied against Obamacare at first. I didn't like it, and mainly because they had threw in the subsidy part of it, where everyone had to pay the extra portion, and that was not my idea of affordable care, even though, because it didn't go down, it just more or less stayed the same, and we were paying more out of our taxes for it. So it was kind of I didn't like it at first, and when I realized that it was cheap, because it didn't include all of these physicians in the hospitals, it was preventative medicine. That insurance was supposed to be for people going to the gym and going to getting good information for their diets. It was supposed to be where you would just have general checkups, and that is where you are supposed to be able to take your information, because they developed new information where people could take home for healthcare, and that's what you're supposed to do. And so it was supposed, Obamacare was supposed to just cover the bare minimum, and it was not supposed to be for people over at the age of dying. Those people were not even, they were disposable in a way. So that was all part of the Obamacare ACA, and I was against it at first, and when it was voted
people are not going to overcome rich people. Poor people can go vote. Rich people will buy your politician and have them do whatever they want them to do. It's a win. It's a lose-lose cause. The only way that is don't be poor. Now, what does it take not to be poor? You got to have an education. You got to have morals and ethics in your lifestyle. It's all those things that people don't want to do.
All right. We've talked about this a long time. I want to change the subject. I have another topic.
We don't have an answer to that yet.
You know, it's not a matter like, oh, I'm going to change my lifestyle. Like, they've been dependent on it for years. And then I know a 21-year-old who had a baby, and they pay $50 a month for low-income housing. For a while, neither parent worked, and they get food stamps. Now the other parent works. It is what it is. Like, they're on the gravy train. Okay, here's my other topic. A federal judge resigned this week. His name was Mark Wolf. He had an op-ed piece in the New York Times and I think the Washington Post. He's been in office since the Ford administration, and he's served as an appointed judge in the U.S. District of Massachusetts since 1985. No, I think he was a lower level judge since Ford. So anyways, I'm going to read two quotes that he said, and then I'm going to ask you guys to interpret it. He said that he's resigning because he sees too much illegal discrepancy between the executive branch and the judicial branch, where they're always having to fight Trump on his decisions. He said what Nixon did episodically and covertly, knowing it was illegal and improper, Trump is now doing it routinely and overtly. And he also served in the DOJ in the years after the Watergate break-in, where they put all those other justice controls in place. I'll have to read my paper sometime on that. Wolf said even if a prosecution that ends in an acquittal can have devastating consequences for the defendant, and noted DOJ guidelines instruct prosecutors not to seek an indictment unless they believe there is sufficient admissible evidence to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. It's been happening too much under Trump, and Trump has utterly ignored these judicial principles. Last night, in the middle of the night, he pardoned another slew of the January 6 people. Did anybody catch that on social media or regular media?
And rightfully so.
Did you catch it, Suzette?
Yes.
What did you interpret out of that situation?
I interpreted that he did the right thing.
Come on, Suzette.
No, that's right.
You're the poster child of logic.
If you break the law, you get a chance to party. That's right.
You're stupid as fuck.
What?
If that's so, the people that are being indicted for their shenanigans with the Russiagate, then
They should be indicted too.
Yeah, then those people need to go to jail too.
All these white people should be indicted. That's what the problem is.
Okay, can I read two more things?
All these
Don?
They make the laws and they change the laws. Nobody has a chance to do anything because it's always a moving target. And so people are getting tired of it. And that's why there's going to be a backlash on both parties. This is not going to be a one party or another party downfall. This is going to be both parties going through a major conundrum, trying to put together so many pieces into one puzzle. They can't do it.
I just have two more comments on this topic, Mark Wolf. So anyways, he resigned, and he also said that It also said in the article that before the appointment to the bench, Wolf led the Justice Department's Public Corruption Unit in Boston, and he served as the chair of the Integrity Initiative's international NGO focused on strengthening anti-corruption enforcement. In 2023, he testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Judicial Ethics after investigative reports alleged that Clarence Thomas had failed to disclose luxury travel and other gifts from a billionaire named Harlan Crow. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to badmouth Obama, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying that this judge who has been in office 40 years sees institutional restraints on two branches of government and he can't tolerate it anymore. And he basically resigned so he could speak up. Now, I'm sure he has tons of savings and he's not at risk, so he had the luxury to do that. But now he's going to start speaking out.
Well, let me say something about that. You hear how devious and devilish they make the remark about Trump getting something from a billionaire?
Not Trump. It was Clarence Thomas.
Well, why come I always get jumped? Suppose I give Trump my tickets to a Cardinals game. So what are they going to say? They can't say I'm a billionaire, can they? So how would they slant that? It's a bunch of bull crap.
He doesn't probably want the tickets.
What I'm saying is a bunch of bull crap. And judges don't make laws.
Okay, the judge has been on the bench. He's been on the bench 40 years. He's obviously
that don't make no difference. He don't make laws.
Yes, but they interpret the law and they judge the law.
They are only in most of his cases. He's hearing an argument between two parties because they can't work it out amongst themselves.
So,
even so, if he gives an opinion, neither of the parties have to go by it. He has no enforcement powers.
I do think judges. Why don't we use the recent snap as an example? One judge ruled that Trump has to give snap back, and then another judge ruled that they only have to give half a snap back. It does.
They're full of a bunch of crap, Jane. He can't tell the executive. That's what the Constitution gives Trump the power. He's the executive.
He doesn't have all the power. He doesn't have the power to break every law in the nation.
The Constitution gives him that privilege. The judiciary is at the bottom of all the major players. He's at the bottom of the executive. He's at the bottom of the legislative, which is Congress. Then you got the judiciary. They're at the bottom. They don't make laws.
I disagree.
Good behavior.
I studied jurisprudence in college. Let's use that talk.
So the people that have these no kings rallies and stuff saying they don't want a king, they're referring to Trump. Trump is not holding the shutdown. It's the Republicans in the legislature, as far as Congress goes, and the Senate that are holding it up. He may be directing them to hold it up, but he doesn't have the power of the purse. It is Congress that does. So when the judge interferes and says, Trump, you need to open up the government or you need to pay the SNAP benefits, he doesn't have the power to do that. It's Congress and the Senate that have to vote to do that. Congress mainly because they have the power of the purse and they're the ones that deal with the money and appropriating that money to designated agencies. And so
Absolutely.
when you have judges interfering and telling Trump to pay that, he doesn't have that power. If he does, well, then he's a king. But
he doesn't have power for war.
Yes, he does. He can have.
No, he doesn't. He has only 60 days.
Congress has to approve any action, defensive action, or war actions against the neighbor.
He has the power to have war action for 30 days, Don.
No, it's 60 days.
That is under an emergency situation.
Any kind of that. Well, it's not a. So what do you call war? A picnic?
All right, you know what, Bianchi, for someone who's the constitutional defender, you're being too footloose and fancy free. First of all, the Supreme Court and lower courts do have impact on certain cases. That's why they exist. And Brown versus
Like what kind of cases?
Brown versus education, Plessy versus you didn't study any of this in college. I did.
Well, listen, judges don't even have to be lawyers. It could be somebody, your next door neighbor, that you go to and say, would you judge this controversy that we have? They don't have to be lawyers.
Well, nowadays, most people are polished lawyers who get into those appointed district judges positions.
They do that for formalities. There's no rule. There's no particular requirement that they have to even be a judge. I'm sorry, a lawyer.
All right, I want to talk for a minute, okay? So there's do we have to go back to the beginning of time? Plessy versus Ferguson, Brown versus Board of Education. Obamacare was decided in the courts. I don't have my intellectual sliding scale in my brain open tonight, but the courts have been very monumental in certain decision-making processes. Also, there's a thing called there's different studies in the courts that have to do with what percent of the judges use their own self-will when making decisions versus a collective will of the public service. How many are there's a whole different thing in colleges that study the jurisprudence behavior of each individual judges and what percentage do they use based on their own moral upbringing. My brain's.
Let me ask you a question. You made mention of Plessy versus Ferguson. What about it?
It was the rule that they could have fairness in the railroad cars. Just a minute. I'm getting my
Black Constitution. They ruled the constitutionality of those cases. They didn't.
Black Americans own a transportation system in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Plessy versus Ferguson did not apply to them. If they said we don't want whites riding in our buses, they could say that. Why? Because it was private buses and it didn't take no federal money.
I'm trying to look something up in a book. You guys keep talking quick. I'm in my library.
Yeah, well, but I don't know what happened down in Winston-Salem, but for the most part, the federal government makes a lot of decisions that are, they're questionable.
They make decisions that entities really don't have to follow. Take the 1965 Voters' Right Act, ACT. It only applied to a handful of states, including Alaska and Hawaii. I think in all there's probably 6. Well, what about the rest of the 44 states? You know why come it didn't apply to them? Because it was an act, ACT. It was not a constitutional amendment. States did not have to abide by it. It was nothing more than, what's that damn thing? A consent decree is all it was. We consent to go along with it. They don't have to go along with it, Don. You got people bamboozled.
I'm not saying that is not.
I'm just using you as somebody to say. I could have said Suzanne.
Right. Oh, no.
Her name's Suzette, not Suzanne.
Decisions of federal government Supreme Court decisions are exclusive to one or a few states. So most of
Supreme Court. Supreme Court set the standards for all the lower courts, the inferior courts.
But
You don't have to listen to them, and people don't. What they gonna do? Here's the point. What they gonna do? What is they gonna do to a state? There's nothing they can do to a state.
Nothing at all.
All right, can I read something out of my poli-sci book? It's called Postmodern Legal Movements, Law and Jurisprudence at Century's End. Modern American jurisprudential studies began with the Dean of Harvard University, Christopher Columbus Langdell, published the first modern law book, Casebook, Selection of Cases on Laws and Contracts. Langdell's casebook ushered in the modern era because it offered a new methodology and pedagogy for law study that was nothing more than an expression of faith in the scientific method. He declared in the Contracts Casebook, it is indispensable to establish at least two things. First, that law is science. Secondly, that all available materials of that science are contained in printed books. In keeping up with the spirit of enlightenment, Langdell had faith in the powers of science and reason to uncover universal truths. So what they're trying to say is, in a symbol of age and faith, most people use their conceptual building of reasoning on classical orthodox systems, which I'm just going to interpret in human language. People in the practice of jurisprudence, the judges have to base it on historical context, on what happened in the case before, and they do it through practice and knowledge over a long period of time. They just don't wing it and make snap decisions. They have to provide, like the Supreme Court has to provide an answer every time they vote a certain way, and they usually have to bring up historical references.
Is saying that how do they enforce that? And that's where police.
Well, it's not a matter of enforcement. It's a matter of practice, longevity, and knowledge.
But after they make a decision, how who's going to enforce it?
Well, they enforce it themselves.
The courts don't enforce jack shit.
Well, that's up to the executive branch. Once the law is affirmed or reaffirmed or like shut down, then it's up to the executive branch to uphold the law. And if you guys say what? There's a whole area of study on how judges vote. And it has to.
Regardless of that, Jane, they don't have the power. Listen.
They got some power.
Natural born citizens.
Then why are gay people allowed to marry? That was a federal government decision.
Let me just get on something called natural born citizen. Every president, except for the first 7, and that was starting off with Martin Van Buren. He was an Article 2 president all the way to Bush. The only one that broke the damn chain was Obama. He was not natural born. Article 2 of the United States Constitution, it says the clause establishes natural law and the law of nations relevant U.S. Supreme Court rulings such as Venus 1814, Minor versus Happerson 1875, and Perkins versus England 1839. It is not where the parents were born that is controlled, but whether or not both parents were citizens of the United States via birth or naturalization at the time of the birth of their child in the USA. Both parents must be U.S. citizens when their child is born in the USA for that child to be a natural born citizen. In order to be a U.S. president, you have to be a natural born citizen.
So why are you bringing this?
Kamala Harris, wait a minute, let me finish. Kamala Harris was not a natural-born citizen, nor was Obama.
You know what? You're just using the law to advance your own political ideology.
Yeah, but
This was I was not living in 1814.
All I'm saying is that the law provides a framework for what the whole jurisprudence history beginning in 1776 or whatever. There's a history and a legacy. Decisions are built on that history and legacy. You just brought it up, and it's okay to talk about it in the way that you want to, supporting the laws that you just supported. But then on the other hand, you just you're talking about something validating your own belief system. But
it's
then
not my belief.
Wait, but then when we talk about a modern case like gay marriage, then you're just saying, well,
it doesn't have to be modern. It was never overruled.
You didn't let me finish.
It was supported.
You're acting like the whole Supreme Court and the justice branch is just something that they wing every day and make half-assed decisions. No, it's based on historical content. If you spend any time
That's what the Constitution says when it was written. Article 2.
Well, why don't you go into the Wall Street Journal or somewhere and read one article about law? Just read about law. Read something
in 1814.
Read something about law. You're just cherry picking things.
I'm not cherry picking anything. My grandson and his classmate won 2 years in a row. Constitutional debate for the state of Missouri. They came in first place. I guided them. 2 years in a row.
Okay, why don't you talk to Don about how the courts over the years have changed and modified educational curriculum?
They have not.
Don knows everything. How
They did not modify.
how state laws have regulated and they put in different educational planning, and they changed math learning. There's a lot of things that have been decided by the courts that you're overlooking.
The federal court has nothing to do with your local school district. That's up to the parents and the state statutes.
That's a lie. No Child Left Behind was implemented by George Bush Jr. And
the state statutes in Missouri specifically exclude No Child Left Behind. It's in the statute.
Did you know that every president since George Bush Jr. has not abandoned NCLB, No Child Left Behind? They've all.
He has do you understand?
It's not abandoned. It's still effective. They have all these kinds of tutoring agencies to fulfill it.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Somebody help me.
I do understand, but you're
federal government has.
You're ignoring.
Why do you keep trying to talk over somebody? It doesn't make you no more right.
I didn't.
Congress pass that? No children left behind or no child left behind?
Yes. Yes, they did.
Has no power over your local school district.
I'm not trying to discount what you said. I'm trying to discount the fact that you don't know anything about modern jurisprudence.
Anybody with some comprehensive sense can read a state statute and see what it says.
I'm talking about the when you're in a class, you're in a political.
I'm not in no damn class. I can sit in my own living room and read it.
When you're studying theoretical outcomes of judge decision making, there's a whole long history about it. It's not just something you can wing in a courtroom or make a snap decision.
Well, that's why they take precedented cases into consideration when making their.
Right,
Susan? What I'm trying to tell her is that the federal government has no control over your school district.
You're trying to be too specific. I was giving an example of how a president's initiative changed the course of modern education, private tutoring, and success of a student.
Regardless of whatever changes was made, the federal government has no control over your local school district.
I disagree.
How?
The NCLB, No Child Left Behind, is a federal law that aimed to improve American public schools through stricter accountability measures and annual testing. Its main goal, let me finish. Its main goal included closing the achievement class gap between disadvantaged students and their peers, giving parents more educational choices, and requiring all students to meet state standards in reading and math. It was implemented through the federal government, and I worked for an agency that implemented it in Los Angeles. So there.
Read Missouri statutes as it applies to curriculum, textbook instruction, and teachers' instruction. Read what it says. It says that the curriculum, the textbook instruction, and the teachers' instruction is up to the local district, and that the state board of education and the state and the elementary and secondary education has no bearing on them. And also, it puts No Child Left Behind out in the outfield someplace. They don't have to go by it. States are sovereign countries.
It doesn't have nothing to do with me talking about the jurisprudence and the behavior of judges.
We don't even have to go to court.
You know, I'll just save this topic for another night. Suzette, I have to go to work now. Can everybody do their conclusions?
Sure.
By the way, Missouri's ranked 34th out of 50 in education. Whoopee-doo.
That's public schools. What's new?
I know, I'm just being a smartass.
I don't care.
Whoop-de-doo. Okay, go ahead,
Okay.
Suzette.
My conclusion about this evening's topics, I think that after the 1-year extension that they agreed upon, I guess last night sometime, the Democrats to having the subsidies continued. But during that time, which they probably won't, but they should, and we need to call them in DC and let them know, okay, great, you guys opened up the government, so let's get rolling on what we're going to do after the CR expires. Because if we don't get healthcare costs under control, lowered, reduced, because there's very little competition out there right now, and because there's not very many nurses, there's not very many doctors, it's not like a lucrative income anymore for these people, and so they, don't want to deal with it, and that's because the subsidies coming from the government, they can only charge so much, and the government will only pay so much. But nevertheless, they'll increase their prices, and the government will pay for those increased prices. So we need to push more for reform and reducing the cost of healthcare itself. And then we can deal with the insurance companies. Right now, there's only a few out there. And so those few out there are controlling basically healthcare. And we are not necessarily getting the greatest healthcare for our money, and that's because we have shortages of nurses and doctors. They want to get you in, they want to kick you out. And when you're not seen properly, you'll speak to maybe 2 different assistants, and you'll have to explain to them over and over what you're there for. And it may be even a follow-up, and so they should know what you're there for, but you've got to explain it to that one. Then the next one comes in, so what are we here for today? And explain it again when the doctor comes in. Well, they have electronic healthcare records. They're easily read, so they don't have any excuses anymore for not being able to read the writing of the previous person that had seen them. And so, with electronic records, they have that information available, but they just don't have the time because there aren't that many positions out there. So they're just turning people out and not even actually getting to the root of their cause of illnesses. So we need to deal with that. As for the Trump thing, all presidents have done something as far as maybe not have started a war, but had done involved in some form of regime change without Congress's hand. And they need to get back to having that done with Congress. We had Libya, and that place is a disaster now because of a mistake that was made by the president. We had President Trump that had sent missiles into areas in the Middle East. I think that was not a good decision. I don't agree with everything that he does, and I think that he had acted on, maybe some bad consultation or whatever. I don't know where his head was, but I wasn't happy with it. He shouldn't have done it. I think that our connection with Israel is a disaster. I said that President Trump needs to get back to dealing with the U.S. and, not necessarily cutting ties, but when you think about it, when we're sending, I think it was in 2023, we sent over $3.1 billion in financial aid to Israel. That's not even including any of the military supplies and weaponry and whatever. In 2024, we sent $6.3 billion in financial aid. In 2025, they got significantly less. It was like $500 and something million instead of billion. But nevertheless, what are we getting from Israel? Do we even get a thank you in some sort of way? No.
Good point.
And they're over there, they're starting, picking on, Iran, starting, wars in Yemen, taking over territory and stuff like that. And they're just, knowing that we're going to be there with the money. I saw this video the other day about how Israel has this new water system that they have built, and it's incredible, and how it works, and this and that. And in the comments, all I read was, "Oh, praise the chosen people. They're so smart. They're chosen, and they're genius," and all this other. And I'm thinking, I wrote a comment in there, which I got backlash today. I looked, but I wrote a comment saying, "Yeah, they can be genius and innovative with somebody else's money." I said that money could have done good here. There are areas in our states, in our United States, that need water filtration systems for clean water, that money could have been used for. But yeah, so when you're spending other people's money, it's very easy to
That's funny you mentioned that, because the Euphrates River is drying up in Iran, and, and no one's doing a thing about it.
No, in fact, Saudi Arabia is doing something right now with their water filtration system. But anyway, so I'm just really upset, with people and their blindness to as far as go with Israel, but yet when it comes to sending aid anywhere else, they complain about it, but yet, billions of dollars are being sent to a country that has done nothing for us. Tell me the last time that Israel had done anything for the U.S. and thanks for the financial aid that we give them and military aid. It doesn't have to be anything major, but something significant for the U.S. But because the money that we give them, we're basically...
Well, we have a lot of wealthy Jews in America that help the economy.
I'm talking to the Israeli government in Israel.
I know what you mean. You did an excellent summary. And by the way, I will be calling you and Don tomorrow on my half day off to tell you about my son. I talked to Don's wife about it, but not Don himself. So I just, I'm really busy, and I just got back Saturday, so I'll try to make time tomorrow to fill in the details.
Okay, that sounds good. And one last thing, as far as the Democrats winning the governor of New Jersey and governor in Virginia, those states were already Democrat states. As a matter of fact, New Jersey hasn't had a Republican governor. Governor Christie was the last one in 30 years, so that was not a really big deal as far as Mickey over Jack what was his name? Santorelli.
We didn't have a chance to talk about the New York mayor tonight.
Yeah.
that all the fear-baiting Muslims are pissed off about.
Yeah. So as far as people saying, oh, well, there's a rebuke of Trump's economic policies and this and that. Well, they were already blue. And Virginia, Trump had actually won that over Kamala. And it was only by 4 points, because it's a blue state. So,
Virginia is generally a blue state, but sometimes it does go red.
You talk about Kamala. She shouldn't have even been running for that position.
Okay, we know that, Bianchi. That's your beef. But Tim Kaine lost his ass with Hillary Clinton, and he's from Virginia. So anyways, you guys, Don and Bianchi, I want to say something. I have to go get dressed. You can keep talking. But Bianchi, the thing I was upset with you about is you didn't understand what I was talking about as far as the whole field of jurisprudence. And I understand
what you're talking about. There's two constitutions. One is the original one, and another one is court.
Well, you didn't let me finish.
Which it shouldn't be.
You want to know one of the most monumental court-determined decisions ever was choosing George Bush over Al Gore. And it was supposed to be decided by the Florida Supreme Court, but the U.S. Supreme Court hijacked it. So I'm not going to get into that.
It goes to show you that they don't do things the way it should be done.
I know it's driven by partisan politics. Now I got to go get.
You had Al Gore and George Bush in dispute, and they agreed to have the courts to decide on it. Now,
I don't have time to get into it tonight. Al Gore only wanted 4 counties recounted. I gotta go get dressed. You can talk about it with Don. You guys can finish up. I'm leaving the room. Sorry.
Oh, bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.
I don't know what people don't like to do. Follow the Constitution. That's what they should be following. They don't do it.
Right.
Kamala Harris had no business being running in that position. And I can't understand the whole damn country, except for those that knew better, didn't say a damn thing.
Right. Exactly. We have a lot of activist judges too on the court, and so
activist judges is a bunch of crap. And here's the thing too: we should keep our money in our pocket and stop these damn taxes. It's just like when you do exploration for natural resources within a state, and then the government, federal government, comes in and charges fees. That money should go to the people of the state, like they do in Alaska. It should be royalties.
What happened is we have too many states dependent on the federal government. Each state should be self-sufficient, and they're not. And so that's where we run into problems as far as where things should be taken care of, and when they're not, then they're relied upon the federal government. Each state has
That's why they want the federal government to carry Medicaid, because they know they never would do it efficiently.
They can't afford it because they can't even keep a budget. So, they can't. The people that we put in charge cannot manage the money efficiently, in order to make it so it's possible for those who are in need can have, and others, who are not in need, so it's balanced out. And so they're not, on, or, as far as assistance, for decades, and then raising their children to be on care. And
the first responsibility of that goes to the churches. That's why the churches have tax, what do they call it? They have, what's the status that they have? I can't think of it.
Yeah, they have the 501c.
they have tax exempt status.
Mm-hmm.
That's because when people give to the church, they can write it off against their income tax. They don't have to. The church don't have to pay taxes on it. The church is supposed to be God's house, Jesus' house. So they're supposed to take care of the poor, not the federal government.
Right. And for a while it was working, but then as more and more the federal government started paying out more and more, and taking over basically, those started to go away. These different charities and groups like that, because they were actually making it difficult for them, taxing them and regulation-wise, not just the churches, but these non-governmental agencies that were actually doing good work at one time, and then the government just came in and basically took over, and so they're reliant on the federal government. Oh, and that was one more thing about my comment that I had replied with that one video. I told them that they're God's chosen people, and shouldn't they be blessed with prosperity and grace? I mean, I don't understand.
You know what the man
chosen
was?
people need to hand out.
You know the mass, the country that was supposed to be the country of return, the land of return, that was talked about with Arthur Balfour and Theodore Herschel. Do you know what that land was?
No.
It was Uganda.
Oh.
That's another Black Hebrew Israelite lie.
That's not no lie. All you gotta read about Theodore Herschel and Arthur Balfour.
I will, Doctor.
It wouldn't have nothing to do about no Hebrew Israelites.
I will, Dr. Strangelove. I'm getting dressed.
God
Okay.
damn.
Don, do you have any closing comments or conclusions? Hello.
Yes, no, it was a pretty enlightening discussion on you guys' part. I was able to glean a little bit of information, but I'm not sure. It's hard for me to go by any other text or research or anything like that, because I know that everybody is they have a something that's distinct to them, and so they are going to put out, publish or propagate anything to follow up on their point of view and their opinions or research data. And I'm not enamored with all of that. I do my own research, make sure that I understand a little bit of what each point of view would be. We've got a situation here in Nevada where we're kind of on the ropes to the Democratic Party with our 2 senators being among those 8 who have pledged to vote to bring the government back.
Well, didn't they do like their constituents wanted them to do?
No, I mean,
Well, they should have.
well, they should have, but the government, the reason behind it that we've talked to them before about, and is that it's bad for the people. We can figure out, and again, this is counter to ACA and racism and bigotry, but our public comes first.
The state of Israel was formed in 1948. What was the black man's name? What was the black man's name that received a Nobel Peace Prize for the work that he contributed in forming the state? I can't think of his name. Do you remember?
No. To start the state to help. I don't know. No.
Do you know, Suzette?
No, I don't. Let me just say to Don really quick, I think that's one of the reasons for the show, is because we have differing opinions, and different sources that we draw our information from. And so this way, rather than to keep it to yourself, it's nice to share, I read this from whatever, or I saw this from this person, as far as videos or TV or whatever it is. And then for me, I can take that information and go check it out myself and weigh it against where I had gotten my information, if they're differing opinions and how we came to our opinions. And then I can figure out, okay, so maybe I should have considered this or that when I concluded my opinion. Or, well, no, that's not exactly right. And here are the receipts. But, and talking not other articles from other people, but we're talking documents that's in stone, from the horse's mouth themselves. But I think you shouldn't shy away from that as far as sharing your opinion and how you came to that conclusion, your sources and so forth, because we should weigh that information against each other so that we can form, a well-rounded opinion rather than, well, you guys got yours and, I've got mine and we're not going to agree. And we can't assume that because, we may at the end of the night, who knows?
Well, that's why I'm here. That's why I've been on the program for how long, Jane? 12 years?
Oh, way longer than any of us. New York County.
But that's because, I've always been the voice that's been outside the box, if you will, and bringing up the true history of America. And, like I said, I've got both my families back to 1843 so far, and I know that we built this country. So I've got no compunction about why my kids.
How did they build the country?
Because I knew that my parents not only worked, or my great-great-grandparents were farmers, so they worked the fields, but they also taught, which was against the law.
There are a lot of different states that had a lot of different people.
Yeah, they had farmers all over the place. The guy's name was Ralph Bunche, Bunche.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Ralph Bunche.
Yeah.
He received a Nobel Peace Prize for the work he done in establishing the modern state of what they call Israel was called Palestine.
Correct. And that, I don't know why they, they need to be so imperialistic. They built their own state. They were allowed by the Palestinian state to build their own state, and now they're taking it. And it's out. That happens all the time. This happens in America. That's what's happening. We have
Palestine. The Palestine people have been there forever.
Right.
They were Philistine. They were, what was the other name? Doggone it. Shit.
And it was two other countries that decided Israel was going to be there, and put it, basically the Israelis.
The land was called Canaan. In Phoenicia. Right. Phoenician and the Lebanese are basically the same people.
And they're all black Africans. So that's
some of them they are, a lot of them not. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Everybody's a black African, Bianchi.
No, they're not.
That's what you don't.
Eskimos not.
Eskimos are.
No, they're not.
What are you talking about? We came up that the Indians.
Eskimos is as dark as Wesley Snipes in some cases.
The first place that we conquered, and it didn't have to be conquered because we were original inhabitants, was Turkey. Going up through Russia, going up through the Straits, coming down through Alaska, and down through the Americas. Those were the first places we went. And then the thing
that I have problems, people forever trying to associate skin and its kin. It's just not true.
Don't worry about it. You don't know history. You haven't seen a globe.
I may not know. I know enough about anthropology to know it's not true.
I know. Well, where did man where did the cradle of civilization?
And those people were ape-like.
Who?
The first humanoids.
But were they ape-like in Africa or were they ape-like in Russia?
They were ape-like in Africa. They stayed in trees, man. They stayed in trees. I mean, wait a minute. Hang on. Hang on for a second. Hang on for a second.
I'm saying that. Same thing.
Let me say this. Common sense tell you they stayed in trees. Why? Because they didn't have no defense mechanism to protect them from them damn saber-toothed tigers.
Correct.
And also, guess what else? They stayed in caves. If you go to Ghana, West Africa today, the places got caves every damn where.
And there are some places with that they were able at least to come out in sunlight. But, that the cradle of civilization is out there, even if it's if we're aliens and first spaceship crashed over there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with what you call civilization. Did start in Africa. That's where human beings are. They can't start in no frigid temperature. Life don't start in those type of environments.
So why do you disagree that all life started in Africa?
I didn't say it. I disagree with it. I'm saying they are trying to claim blacks done all these damn things, and it's just not true. When the hell blacks gonna build America, and they didn't build where they came from, and it still ain't built there today in 2025.
Go with that. That's the whole point. Is that we've been the kings of the world, but we've been kept out of this more modernistic and industrial revolution.
Don, maybe they didn't want to be there. You ever thought about that?
No. The meat shall inherit the earth. I know you don't.
It's just like people say today that blacks created all these inventions. They didn't create those inventions. They may have innovated. They may have altered. They didn't invent them. So where are their laboratories?
They bombed them, burned them.
Oh boy.
But we don't have very good records of much of anything.
There's blacks no place on earth had laboratories that had equipment, that had microscopes, that even had electricity. So if you work for an organization, if you work for a company and they are letting you use their laboratory, you're just making innovations and you're remodeling. That's all it is. It's not taking anything from you, but people shouldn't be saying these people are coming up with these inventions. Isaac Newton, what did he do? He was at the infancy of all those things. There was no telescopes when he was born. There was no electricity when he was born.
Right. But that was Isaac. Isaac was cool.
Isaac was one of the best scientists that the planet has ever brought forth.
Exactly.
Copernicus.
I would even argue that if in modern times, when we have all these things available to almost anybody in the world, that they could use to create, innovate, and make better, improve, and you still have people in Africa that still are living primitively. I mean, I can understand.
You know what, Susan? You are absolutely right. There's tribes in Africa. If you look in their pot, they got monkeys and baboons in there. It's nothing wrong with that. That's what they want to eat.
Exactly.
I have to end the show is over, you guys. I got to go to work.
Go to work.
Good night.
Uh,
everybody.